today. And then Gilbert, advisor from Care International UK, is going to present accountability limelight on ourselves, care experience with the Constituency Voice model. After that, we'll have a presentation by Tufail Ahmed, the Organizational Effectiveness Coordinator in Action Aid Pakistan, who present about their key processes and tools of accountability. Then we'll open it for questions, answers, and discussion. And at the end, we'll have our evaluation. Our topic today is about social accountability, learning from people how to improve. And as many of you might remember, the World Development Report of 2004, Making Services Work for the Poor, where they highlighted the long versus short roots of accountability and how can citizens put public service providers to account. This has put social accountability on the agenda of international development, and since then we have seen a lot of very innovative, interesting examples and case studies of how social accountability can hold governments and can hold public service providers to account. Although social accountability tools are older than the social accountability tools, and as an example, participatory budgeting started in Brazil, for example, in the 1980s. And we have seen also a lot of interesting examples from every part of the world. There has been a lot of interesting lessons learned coming out in the past few years about the impact and effectiveness of social accountability, and a lot of them speak about how the importance of politicizing social accountability, what Jonathan Fox has called doing accountability differently. In our webinar, we are going to speak about how CSOs are making use of social accountability, not to hold governments to account, but to hold themselves to account. So it is turning social accountability actually internally. And a lot of the organizations have used many tools to listen to the stakeholders and for the stakeholders to hold them to account, but few have actually used the same tools to hold themselves to account. Here we have two very interesting examples from Care International UK and from Action Aid. Our first presentation will be by Gilbert Mwembu. The stage is yours, Gilbert.
Thank you, Mahmoud. I hope everyone can hear me well.
Yes, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, great. So I'm going to talk about the Constituency Voice model that we're trying out within CARE. This is our attempt to turn the limelight of accountability on ourselves. As Mahmoud has very clearly articulated in his introduction, often we use social accountability tools and approaches to have power holders in the external world account to ordinary people. But we also have power. We realize that we have quite a lot of power, especially in communities where we work. So the question is, suppose that same kind of approach, that same kind of limelight is turned on ourselves, how good are we in terms of responding? And how well are we in terms of, structuring that response so that, we get quite a bit of what is helpful, especially in advancing the outcomes that we are looking for. So my presentation will be very short. It's only about 10 slides, so I'll speak through, but I'll give quite a bit of examples that I have. So of course, the first thing to say is that we have been using this approach, the social accountability approach, quite a lot. The different tools that you find there, the community scorecard, the social audits, the budget, participatory budget approaches. And what we do is to make power holders, whether in the private sector or in the public sector, accountable and responsive. And we have used, community scorecards to have communities hold government and private sector account. So the question is, how then do we respond ourselves when the principles of social accountability are turned on us? Of course, we have this constituency voice methodology or model that we've attempted to use. We are using it within, the framework. When you look at accountability, within the framework of forward accountability, not within the framework of social accountability as such. The difference that we need to make here is that we have been using social accountability as an instrument out for the public to use to hold, public officers to account. But within this particular case, we've used this constituency voice methodology as a tool, a practical tool for advancing our forward accountability. That is the relationship between ourselves as CARE, and the different impact groups that we work with, the different partners, and these tend to have, lesser power than what we have as CARE. So we put it within the relationship, the feedback relationship between ourselves and those that are less powerful than ourselves. So what is it in short? What is the constituency voice methodology? The constituency voice methodology revolves around 4 or 5 steps that are very clear. The first step is, we design a very clear process that will help us in terms of, establishing a clear feedback loop between ourselves as CARE and whoever it is that we are in relationship with. In this case, because it's forward accountability, it's a relationship between those that have less power than ourselves. It could be partners, it could be direct impact groups. So the first stage is designing. We think through what should be the feedback loop. If we have partners that are in different sectors, we could decide, okay, can we work with partners that are at this level rather than this other level? Because sometimes you could find we have partners at the national level, but we also have partners at the local level. So the feedback loop could make a decision when we are designing. We could decide that let's have a feedback loop between ourselves and national partners, and that becomes one of the things that we look at. Or it could be, can we have a feedback loop between ourselves and partners at the local level? So those are the kinds of decisions we make at the design level. The second thing is collection of data. So this can, we of course during design we come up with the questions that we want to ask. So these are co-created questions. They are not questions that we design ourselves. We are informed, and I'll talk about this when I get my other slide. We are informed by the need to have fewer questions because we want this to be as light as possible. So mostly we have one major question, and because we apply the net promoter score within this, which I'll talk about shortly, we make sure that the questions that we design are so short and they're centered around the kind of relationship that the partners or the impact groups are seeing from CARE, the kind of behavior they are seeing from CARE. So once that question is clear and we are saying those are the questions we are going out with in the field, then we collect, and collection of data happens using the existing processes. For instance, we use we could be doing a training to another program. So we decide that after the training or before the training or even during the training, we have about 5-10 minutes where we could collect this very quick data to tell us what they're thinking about what we are doing. And this is what we do, is make sure that it's short, but at the same time it's also very continuous. It's not something we do once. Then of course analysis, where we use the net promoter score, which I'll talk about shortly. We analyze, and then we categorize them into the 3 responses, where on the one hand we could have promoters who are very happy with what we do. Then we have those that are passive, they're not so sure that they like what we do. And then there are those that are detractors. Basically they have a very negative view of what we do. So now that gives us details of what generally they think our services are like, or whatever it is that we do is like. And then we go to the step number 4, which is closing the loop. And this is particularly what we do here is, hold dialogues, respond to that feedback by, checking out what was the problem, talking to the respondents that gave us feedback and trying to correct what it is that they felt was negative about our work. And then we close the whole of that cycle, the Constituency Voice methodology, through course correction. This is where, now the leadership within the organization comes in and reinforces some of the changes that are required based on the feedback that we got from the whole cycle. So in brief, this is how the methodology runs, and it's continuous. It's not something that stops once. We could run this cycle for instance, the work that we are doing currently, the pilot that we are doing currently, we are in the third cycle in most of what we are doing. So we've run the first cycle and then the second cycle. So we are into the third cycle. It doesn't follow that all the processes are done in the way they appear in 1 up to 5. Sometimes you could be doing so well depending on what you're using for collecting information. You could be doing so well in 1 and 2 and 3. But when it comes to 4 and 5, that's where there's a bit of, you need to spend a bit of time. And if they depend on what is existing, that can delay a bit of things. So I'll talk about that when it comes to challenges. Now, in terms of what we've seen so far, the stated purpose of the Constituency Voice methodology, the idea is to balance power between implementers, in this case ourselves, and recipients by creating regular, safe, and simple opportunities for those with less power, in this case, either our partners or direct beneficiary groups, to assess program performance from their own experience. So we let them do the assessment rather than we do it and say this is what we did ourselves. We try to share that power to make sure that they tell us what is happening. But one of the things that you need to note is that this is not at the end of the program. This is not at the point when we are doing M&D. The end time evaluation or midterm evaluation. No, this is continuous within the program as we implement it. So it's centered around improving relations, as it's clear here, improving efficiency in programs because we make decisions around efficiency, program efficiency. Effectiveness also it helps, and it can also help us in terms of tracking what is the evidence of the outcomes that we are getting out of the program. So it has quite a number of things that it does. In terms of, just very quickly, because I'm sure I don't have a lot of time, we have done it in 5 countries: Zambia, Ghana, Tanzania, Bangladesh, and Nepal. We've applied it across different sectors. We have purely governance program, like for instance in Ghana. We have it in nutrition program in Zambia. We have it emergency response in Nepal, social enterprise in Bangladesh. So we've tried different sectors and we've applied it with different results. And also, different donor projects. It's not just DFID. We've also tried out in Ghana, on a USAID funded program. So it cuts across in terms of donors as well as in terms of, the sectors that we can apply it to. So this, what I'm just showing is what has emerged. This is a report from Zambia, here Zambia, and you can see the kind of data that we got. This is an example of a report, an analysis that came from Zambia. So here the question that we asked was, how happy are you with the timelines for receiving funding from us? The program we do in Zambia, just to give some bit of background, we are a grant maker in Zambia, so we provide funds to partners, and then these partners are the ones that are responsible for undertaking a service or undertaking the particular program, nutrition program there. So the question we asked here was, how happy are you with the timelines or the time we spend to send you the money when you request for it? So you can see we received a negative net promoter score. There was a place where, actually 2 places, these are districts, Kalabo and Kaputa. We received negative responses from the 3 districts. And the rest of the districts, there were actually 14, I think 14 districts. The rest of them were negative. So this was a bit of an outlier in the sense that everything was negative. That question, all the respondents responded and indicated a negative experience. So, and then we asked for a bit of explanation why. And they gave us, you can see down there, the funding comes very late with no explanation. CARE does not disperse funds on time. There's one here. CARE also delays to fund projects even if reports are submitted on time. So they tried to give some bit of explanation why. This one example. Another example from Ghana, for instance, again, these are an extract from Ghana around how Ghana, Care Ghana treats the different participants and partners in a program. And you can see we had almost the first one, the Net Promoter Score of 0. What this means is that we had promoters being the same number as those who felt very negative about what we are doing. The 37, the 237s that we are seeing out of the 32 responses. So what this told us was that they were not very happy with the work we are doing, because that's a negative Net Promoter Score. And then you can also see we have a Net Promoter Score of 3 under 128 responses. So here the issue was that partners, we asked them, do you think we treat each one of you fairly? But the response was that no, it wasn't fair. Not everybody is treated fairly. And you can see the kind of qualitative feedback they provided. During the year 2 budget preparation, some of the partners, civil society partners, were asked to reduce their budget, while budget lines of others were not cut off, but maintained, although we were all carrying out the same activities. So you see that decision within CARE was not spread across the entire, partnership. It was just for a few partners. And this tells us very immediately that, there's a problem. There's a problem, and there's a perception of unfairness on the part of what we did. Just because there's quite a lot that I can share in terms of, the different individual experiences, I want just to summarize what is emerging as, the experience generally. So I think there are around 5 things that are clear. In terms of data, the Constituency Voice has helped us quite a lot in terms of getting very meaningful data. Of course, we had been engaging, with the different other different methods and feedback systems. But they didn't give us this kind of information, very clear, very continuous, and to the point, and easy to collect. So it has helped us in terms of getting very, very meaningful data using, very simple ways of getting it. Unlike previous feedback, using other ways of getting feedback, whether it was complaints, mechanisms, and all that, this data is more detailed and leaves a trail behind that can be followed up. In terms of relationship, the data gathered reflects the genuine feelings of partners and lays ground for improving relations through dialogue. So because this is an anonymous data collection system, it's giving us data that is fairly true. They're telling us fairly what they feel, and we feel that's genuine enough to improve relations. In terms of efficiency, changing programs, of course, in places where dialogues have happened, where we've done dialogues out of the data, there's been improvements, decisions around how programs should be managed. There have been, going back to say, we are sorry, we did this, but we didn't think, we didn't think the way you are thinking, the way you viewed it. So a bit of more explanation of, some of the things that we did. And we are hoping that that will improve in terms of program efficiency. Effectiveness and impact. So far now, what we have is more of anecdotal information, around people saying now we own the program more. We haven't done an evaluation because the pilot is still continuing. We haven't done an evaluation to clearly state what it is that that has come out in terms of changing or improving the impact of the program. In terms of evidence, it is providing evidence that I think is very critical, especially when you're doing a midterm review on how the program is progressing. And I think that is going to be helpful a lot to the people in M&D. The few challenges that we've seen, conceptually, of course, we are using the Net Promoter Score. I haven't had time to go through it, and I don't know if I can have just a minute to explain what it is. The Net Promoter Score is actually based on, it comes from the private sector, where, it's basically gauging the satisfaction of customers with services from, say, a shop. So, the shopkeeper would ask customers the question around loyalty. How loyal would you, or how would you recommend these services from this shop to your friends and colleagues? So it's basically around that kind of question. So there is a response that the particular client who's being asked that question provides would be categorized into 3. So it could either be yes, I'll promote you, so that becomes a promoter, or no, I'm not so sure, that becomes a passive. And then definitely not, then that becomes, somebody who is a detractor. So these three scores are what determines, who your promoter, detractor, and passives are. Now, that kind of categorization and analysis works extremely well in the private sector. But within the development sector and the humanitarian sector, we find challenges of zeroing in on one question, especially a question around loyalty, because I don't think we provide services that are the same as what you provide in the private sector. So we are still grappling with one question that would be like the main question that determines who or what people think about what we do. So it's a conceptual challenge there, but it's something that we are working with slowly as we learn more and more of what is happening. And of course, there are operational challenges. One of the assumptions, or one of the claims that the Constituency Voice methodology makes is that it should easily adapt to what exists as program. It can adapt to any program in any sector and funded by any donor without any extra cost. But we've realized that's not true. It puts some bit of demand on staff time. Even if it's riding on existing structures, it still requires some bit of somebody to steer it. That requires time and that requires resources. And then we realized that because it demands somebody to steer it, it falls mostly into the hands of the M&D infrastructure in the monitoring and evaluation infrastructure within the organization. Now, when that happens, then it's reduced into an M&D tool rather than a tool for accountability. And that M&D guys are the ones who go with the micro surveys to ask questions using existing touch points, and because of that they end up writing the same reports they would write for M&D. There's a great danger there that it's reduced into into something that is not accountability. And then of course data collection touch points heavily reliant on what exists. So you can't collect data until you are doing a training. Or you can't do your course correction or dialogue until you're doing a training and you set some bit of time. So they are heavily reliant on what exists. And because of this heavy reliance on what exists, they go by what exists. When there are delays, then you'll not do them. When there are other priorities and the programs are squeezed, then you'll not do it. So in a way that holds back the whole process. And then data analysis, of course, this depends on the choice you make between when you're collecting data. You can use a paper-based system, like what we've done in Zambia. You use a paper-based system where somebody goes to the field with a questionnaire or sends a questionnaire, and then he receives back, the filled-in questionnaire on a paper-based system. Or you could use an electronic system. We have an electronic system that has been built for us by the consultant who worked with us on this, called Keystone Accountability. So what Keystone does is they have created, an online system that builds the surveys. You just put in your questions, and then Keystone, that system does, the questions, and you can send it out to the different respondents. They respond back through email or through SMS, and that becomes what you get on as your responses. Now the problem is, each of them come with a cost. For instance, the IT-based system, you have to have money for you to make use of it, and then it also assumes or works well in places where people have access to the online system. If they don't have access to that, then it doesn't work. And then response rate also, we found out in Zambia, between the paper-based and the electronic-based, the paper-based was responded more widely than the electronic-based. So there are different choices you have to make, and then that will determine the costs. Because if you use the paper-based, you'll have more money. You'll need to get more time for somebody to do the work. Just to finalize on the lessons that are emerging.
You have got 1 more minute, Gilbert.
Okay, just very quickly to finalize this on the emerging lessons. Number one is that, this is about accountability. And we've realized that negative feedback is not always welcome and easily accepted. So disputes emerge around questions and who asked them and who responded to them. What this one told us is that if you want really people to be accountable, let them be the ones that decide the question. Because there were colleagues who, when the feedback came, they were not very happy, and they said, no, we didn't ask those questions. We should have asked those questions ourselves. And then secondly, we are feeling like, we as CARE have pushed this system on the partners. They are less powerful than ourselves. So again, the whole question of who is accountable to who is very, very pertinent here. So it's still a power relations thing. And then we have more data. We have more data as CARE on who is giving negative feedback. So if we are malicious, we can use that information badly. We can say, okay, you people are giving negative feedback. They're always in the detractor bit of our respondents. So we punish them. So that can easily happen. It's also critical that leadership within an organization follows it up, because course correction can happen. It's about changing power. So if the leadership within the organization doesn't take that up, it's not going to work. And then, of course, I've already hinted at this, the M&D infrastructure. It can easily subvert this into an M&D thing rather than, something that is for the purposes of, balancing power. And then, of course, legacies of power that the Constituency Voice, because it's an operational system, it can't change. You go into certain cultures and people tell you we can't give feedback. We cannot tell you you're a promoter. We always give feedback up to this point. We can only say you are good up to 7, not 10. So you can't change that kind of thing. So finally, what I need to say about, the final thing I need to say about this is that accountability is not easy. So what we are trying to come up with is an operational mechanism that can help us in terms of reaching the obligations of accountability. It's easy to say, we'll be accountable, we'll do this, but when it comes to the practical aspects of that, it's really very difficult. So this Constituency Voice, we are testing it out and finding out if it can really help us, to be accountable in an easy, fairly continuous way. I thank you all for listening to me.
Thanks a lot, Gilbert. Very interesting content and honest sharing of results as well. We'll just go directly to the second presentation today by Tufail Ahmed, the Organizational Effectiveness Coordinator at ActionAid Pakistan, and then we'll open up for discussion and Q&A. Tufail, the stage is yours. Tufail, can you please unmute yourself in case you are still muted?
Hello. I hope
yes,
everyone is me clear now. Thank you. I will try to focus on ActionAid's approach to accountability, key processes and tools. And out of all those processes and tools, I will be sharing two specific processes around the accountability, how those tools actually embedded stakeholders together along with the right holders at the ground level. So I start with how actually within ActionAid we understand accountability. In ActionAid, accountability actually is a responsibility for the actions. It actually enhances the program quality, impacts and outcomes. And we within ActionAid take this project as a political. On one side, we say that we empower the community to turn them as they raise their voice by questioning and later exercising the same. In the long run, is the community will demand for justice and accountable governance from other stakeholders and even from ActionAid. And then these are some key processes that within Federation we use. Normally, these are 9-10 processes you can see on the screen: the community-led participatory change plan, social audit, PRRPs, public hearing, LBIG, open information board, community-led procurement, complaint mechanism, information summaries. So here comes the one of the example about the social audit. What is it? For us, social audit is a process which strengthens the performance of social development through an approach which promotes trust and accountability to the beneficiaries, stakeholders, and donors. By definition, when we say the process, it is a systematic means of measuring the social performance of an organization. And equally, it is a way of understanding, measuring, reporting, and ultimately improving an organizational social and ethical performance through creating a conversation, dialogue between stakeholders, between organization, within organization, its constituents or stakeholders. And at the same time, is also a method of valuing the voice of right holders, beneficiaries, stakeholders, and other interested agencies and individuals. It's a process, not an event. And we also say that social audit is a series of meetings and reflections of the methods, actions, and results of particular social development organization. It leads agreement on the future course of joint action by the concerned organization, right holders, and stakeholders. This is a cyclic process which is divided into 4 stages. Stage 1 is a preparation, where normally we build mutual understanding on the social accountability process scope among team and the partner, and definitely we ask partner if there are some volunteer in the community, they can invite them to join the team, and then assembling a social audit team. Then we define the process, tools, bring clarity among the whole team, and define the data collection tool, mechanism, and the dissemination plan. Then the actual social audit event happens, where all the stakeholders come together, go into the field for the data collection, triangulation, and then has the comprehensive analysis. And then third stage is a review and plan, where we all reviewing the collected data information and sorting out and relating to the objectives. And then stage implement organizational change. Based on all those 3 stages, actually we implement the change what is required. Then as a whole, what actually the outcome of social audit has happened so far. There were so many outcomes, but this is these are some of the reflections that it making program human resource and financial information transparent to ensure program quality, efficiency, and effectiveness, empowering process for right holder communities and people's organization, and it has helped on ground the partner organization, people organization to strengthen their governance. This has created moral pressure on the government line agencies, schools, and other bodies to ensure transparency and accountability in their program and governance area. This is one of the case that we chosen for this presentation is from ActionAid Nepal. Since the ActionAid Nepal is implementing this process 2002 and of organizing national social audit exercise with support of local partners, in which representatives from government agencies, various networks, federation, alliances from other INGOs, and from bilateral, multilateral donor community, media, etc. participate. Keeping in view the success, importance, and contribution of this process, the Social Welfare Council of Nepal government agency recently introduced a policy to make social audit mandatory for all INGO working in Nepal. So I'm going to another example, the process, participatory review and reflection process. What it means to us. PRRP is a core component of our ActionAid approach to M&E and accountability. It is a more in-depth review with stakeholders on the progress of our work, data collected through our monitoring process, gathered, analyzed, and consolidated for learning and accountability purposes. It's a mechanism of enhancing our relationship with accountability to primary stakeholders. It's a useful process that informs organizational decision-making processes. In the scope, normally it covers 4 areas: context, what has changed, activities, are we doing what we said, objectives against outcomes, indicators, and goal impact. Is there any feedback? So whether objectives are leading to intent, impact or not. Are assumptions and theory of change playing out in practice, or do they need to adjust it? And if so, how? And when it is done, who does? Normally PRRP is carried out by each function and team at all level across the whole organization, from local communities to partner all the way up to our international board. And when PRRP is ongoing process with synthesis movement linked to planning and reporting. What is the process for this? Now, the process for PRP varies widely from context to context, country to country, depending on type and location of programs, primary stakeholders. Few standards are there that space and flexibility is allowed, and timing of ongoing monitoring and review is determined on the basis of MF country-specific system, and teams and functions carry out in-depth interviews, and the lesson and findings of PRRP agreed action arising from them are documented in appropriate form as we can use for the reports, updates, journal reports, performance appraisal, all those accountability processes. So here is a large diagram which shows the relationship between PRRP and social audit. From right side, if you see that social audit covers normally the more accountability perspective from where multi-stakeholders come together, and it is conducted periodically, and where the PRRP it focus more on the activity, issues, organization, campaign, and the progress, impact, all sort of things, and it is a continuous process within organization. So thank you from my side.
Thanks a lot to File for sharing your experience with social audit and the participatory review process that you have been implementing in ActionAid in general, and specifically in Pakistan and in Nepal. And I will start